Hello, my name is Delbert Blanton, and I'm here to review this book, Shantaram, by Gregory David Roberts. It's a big book, 900 pages, but the writing is really good. The writing's smooth. He's good. And I've heard that Gregory David Roberts, it's 950 pages, 950 some pages. And I've heard that the author, Gregory David Roberts, went underground. He's like hiding out in Australia somewhere or something. That's where he's from. He's from Australia. This book could be considered autobiographical fiction or historical fiction. It's about his life, so it would be autobiographical fiction. It's like a lot of the stuff that happened in this book is true. It happened. There's documentation, but he admits that, it's not all true. So the book, when you read this, you will remember it. It's a compelling story. There's many, many stories. It's really fascinating, and I'm recommending it. And it's not like reading something like James Joyce's Ulysses, where you're like, what the hell am I reading? It's not any postmodernism book. So what happens is that Gregory David Roberts, he was either in college, a philosophy student, or maybe he was like teaching philosophy in Australia. I think it was Melbourne. And he had a wife and a daughter, and this isn't how the book begins. This is told in the middle of the book somewhere. So she leaves him for a man. She meets another man, leaves him, and takes their daughter. And he freaks out. And his best friend comes over and says, hey, why don't you try this? And it's heroin. He shoots it up in his arm, and he's hooked. And so he ends up losing his job and quitting the philosophy stuff, and he starts robbing places, robbing, banks, homes, robbing homes, and eventually one of the people that knew him ratted him out, and the cops came and got him busted. He got sent up for they tell the prison in here, the prison that he's in, I can't remember. But later he gets thrown in Arthur Road prison in Bombay. Today officially in India, Bombay is known as Mumbai. That's the official. What happened was that the Indian government didn't like all the names that the British, used and placed on the cities. So, but in this book, it's Bombay, Bombay, Bombay. He goes to Bombay, so Bombay's all through the book. So I know officially it's Mumbai, but he must have went back through this book, and because it was written in was set in 19 early 80s. There's a place where Indira Gandhi gets assassinated, and he's there. So you just you can Google search that. That was 1984 maybe. So you can get the sequence of events, the time frame. But so he must have went back through it, because there's one or two places in here where he refers to the city, and its proper official name now is Mumbai. But all the way else in the city, it's Bombay, Bombay. So I'm going to say Bombay. So he's in this prison in Melbourne, and he breaks out. He's with this guy, and this is a pretty fascinating story. But okay, so he's with these people, and they're on this cleaning patrol, or this cleaning job. And there's some people outside, some workers that are not, in prison. They're like contractors or something, and they're fixing it, and they go on break. So he's sweeping up with this other guy, and they're like, let's go up through this vent and crawl through. So they get a saw and they got to saw through this stuff. It's too. I'm not even going to get into it. It's good. So he escapes from prison. When he gets over the wall outside, one guy goes. He goes one way, and somehow Lindsay. His name is Lindsay at first. He gets on the plane and he ends up. He's going to go to Germany, but there's a layover in Bombay. So there's these two. So he goes, I'm going to check out the city because he's got a little bit of time so he can go into the city. So there's these two Canadians there, the Georges. He calls them the Georges. And they were like, don't trust the locals. The locals will, they're bad. So he gets off this bus and close to the World Trade Centers. And there's a World Trade Center in Bombay. You can look it up. It's some of the stuff that I'm mentioning. It's right on Google. So he meets this guy named Prabhaka comes up. He's got a real big smile. He's like, hey, what do you need? I help you. Come here, you name. So Lindsay decides to trust him. He wants a cheap hotel. So he's like, come on, Canadian Georges, come with me. So Prabhaka takes him to this cheap hotel. He gets some hash. They call it sharas. And sharas, everybody in India is smoking hash. I mean, especially the Muslim Indians and the Hindu Indians, they're loosely drinking. But so he gets some hash. He smokes some hash. He has some Johnny Walker with him. He gives a bottle. Prabhaka like Johnny Walker. Loves the whiskey. So he stays there. He's like, I'm going to hang out here for a couple weeks and see what I want to do. I'm not going back and catching my flight and going to Germany. I'm just going to hang out in Bombay. So while he's there, he's walking with Prabhaka. Prabhaka becomes his guide, and he's like, I want to hire you for 2 weeks to take me all around the city and show me everything. So they're walking at this one place, and they see this woman Carla, and he falls in love with this woman Carla. It's a long, So what he doesn't know at the time. Oh, I got to tell you this. Prabhaka doesn't want to call him Lindsay, so he's like, you got a shorter name. He goes, how about I call you Lynn? And then later, Lynn becomes Lynn Baba. So throughout the book, he's known as Lynn Baba, but he also gets the name Shantaram. So Shantaram, he gets this when he goes to Prabhaka's village. So later he goes to Prabhaka's village. So he meets this woman, Carla, and Carla's like, well, if you want to see me, go to Leopold's. And Leopold's plays a major part in the book. I mean, it's this place, and it's really in Bombay. It's really in Mumbai. You can look up Google Leopold's. There's a picture of it. It's pretty fascinating. They mention all kinds of things. If you've never been to India, I haven't. You want to keep your phone or your close by so you can search some of these places. Mumbai comes down as a peninsula, and then there's a bay, and it's really a pretty fascinating the layout of the city. But anyway, so he goes to Leopold's and he meets a lot of characters there, and he's talking to Carla. Then finally he's like, I got to learn the language, and Prabhaka's like, you need to know Marathi. Marathi is what, if you know Marathi, that's going to give you a lot of status instead of just knowing Hindi, because Hindi's more like a general language over there. And Marathi is what's native to the Bombay area. So he goes with Prabhaka out to his village, and that's a whole nother, but it's good. So while he's there, he learns Marathi, and he works in the fields, and he stays there 6 months. And there's a place where he's like freaks out about the monsoons. The monsoons come. He's like, the river's gonna flood. The river's. And they're like, no, calm down, Lim Baba. Look, we got these sticks. We always put these sticks in here. The water never gets this high. Don't freak out. So they go back. He learns Marathi, writes down all these languages, and he comes back. It's probably going to take me an hour to explain this whole book. So I don't know if I'm going to explain the whole book, but I want to explain a little more. So when they're leaving the village, Prabhaka's village, and they get back into Bombay, they get drunk and they get robbed and beat up. And Lin Baba loses all his money. What the fuck? So, he's in a bad situation. So Prabhaka's like talking to these people. He's like, hey, guess what? We got a place for you to live, a hut in a slum. And the slum is right next to the World Trade Center. And the slum is run by this guy named Al-Qasim. I forget his name. Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. So Al-Qasim runs the slum, and he comes over. He agrees to let Lin Baba stay in a little hut. And there's 25,000 people in this slum. And in the book, it explains that what happens a lot in India is when they decide to build a large building, they hire all these people. They come in, they just put up these little huts around the building. And then it's kind of like the company owns you. You just got to go to work. So they're living in these slums. And then when the building's done, they tear the slum down. So it's like a transient slum. But that slum is still there today. And there's a name. The name of the slum is in this book. And it's real. You can search it. So he gets a hut in the slum. And the first day there's a fire, and I don't want to get into the details of the fire, but what happens is that Lin Baba when he was in Australia, he did a little bit of he wasn't a doctor, but he had a little bit of skill bandaging, cuts and bruises, and so he has a first aid kit with him, and it was given to him when he got on the plane. So he fixes up some people. Next thing you know, there's a whole line of people, and he becomes the doctor. He's like the doctor of this. So they got to get supplies. So they go to these leopards. Prabhaka and Lin Baba go to these leopards, and it goes on. So they get some supplies. And so one day, Lin Baba is at Leopold's, and he's talking to Carla, and he wants to go see the Standing Babas. And the Standing Babas are these people. They've done something bad in the past, and now they feel great remorse. And so they just stand, and they never sit down. And then they lay them down at night, and then they just stand. And the legs get real swollen. Google search that if you want to Google search something. Google search Standing Babas. And it's pretty crazy. So while he's there, there's this guy that comes to him, wants to fight him with a sword, and this other guy intervenes, and this guy's name is Abdullah. Well, it turns out that Lin Baba does not know this at the time, but the mafia boss, the head mafia boss named Kaderbai, sent Abdullah to watch Carla. Carla actually works for Kaderbai, and she is the recruiter. And they're going to recruit Lin Baba to do a little work for him. So Lin Baba saves his ass, and it goes on from there. So he's in love with Carla, but they never have sex. They haven't had sex yet. And she comes one day. He's living in the slums, and he's embarrassed, and she just shows up. And she sees the good job he's doing. He's helping these real poor people. And she falls for him a little bit. So later on, there's this woman in town in Bombay called Madame Zoe. And she's runs the biggest whorehouse in Bombay. And one of Carla's friends, Lisa Carter, works at the whorehouse. And if you're a white woman, you can make big money over there. So anyway, they go in, they bust her out, and she wants Lin Baba to act like an American diplomat. And so they go in there, they get Lisa Carter out of the big whorehouse, and so after that, she goes away, or what happens now? I'm losing my train of thought on this a little bit because there's so many stories, but eventually she leaves the city. She leaves Bombay, and Len Baba ends up working for the mafia, for the Bombay mafia, and there's all kinds of. He gets into the counterfeit books. There's these things. These are your passports. He's making fake passports. He's one of the neat tricks is he tells how to okay, let's say some tourists get off at this time. This was his own scam. This wasn't part of Cotterby's scam, but let's say there's some tourists gets off a plane and they the rate is $1, 70 rupees equals $1. Okay, so $100 equals 7,000 rupees. Is that right? Okay, yeah. So 7,000. So Len Baba would go up and say, well, you're only going to get 7,000 rupees if you go to the official exchange. I'll give you 8,000 rupees. Well, okay, look, these are good. Okay, I'll take it. So he gets the $100. So then he goes to the people in Bombay that he gets to know, and they got dirty money, black money they call it, and they can't. So they want dollars. So they give him actually more. So for 7,000, 7,000 to 100 is the exchange. So they say, we'll give you 10,000 rupees for those $100. So then he's like pocketing extra. So he puts the extra away, goes back, does his deal. If you can follow that. But this is a crazy book, and a good book. But so at the end, all kinds of stuff happens. I don't want to get into it. Abdullah gets shot. There's this dude named Victor, oh shoot, what's his name? He dresses like a cowboy, and he's like he wants to be like Clint Eastwood. And he's always at Leopold's, and they end up having to kill this, or Abdullah kills some, excuse me, Ula kills, Ula's another character. There's many characters in here, but I'm going to shut this off because I'm going too long here. I want to say this before I forget this. Chatterby, they end up going to Afghanistan, and the whole thing, what Len Baba does not understand is that Chatterby's in control of just about everything, and Madame Zoe gets Len Baba thrown into the Arthur Road prison in Bombay, and he gets the shit beat out of him, and it's horrible. I mean, there was some parts in this book where I almost couldn't read it because it was so, gut-wrenching. And Len Baba declares revenge on her. He's going to, kill her. So all through the book, there's these times where the first time Chatterby and Len Baba meets, Abdullah brings him to meet Chatterby. And Chatterby has this philosophy. Now, Chatterby is a devout Muslim. He prays 5 times a day. It tells the Sunnis pray 5 times a day, the Shia 3 times a day. I didn't know that. So there's all kinds. If you read this book, you'll end up knowing quite a bit about Islam. So, okay, I want to give a brief little of Chatterby's philosophy. The world is advancing towards complexity. In the beginning, everything was really simple. Simple cells, simple atoms. Atoms were the first. And these atoms combine and create more and more complex objects. We human beings were the most complex. And there's a tendency toward complexity. You can research this on Google. It's some philosophy that... But, so... You can do anything that leads toward this, because there's really no way to define good and bad. What is good and what is evil? No one, on this side, as Salman Rushdie says, I read Satanic Verses, it was good, but a lot more complicated than this. A little more. Anything that furthers the complexity of the tendency towards complexity is good, and anything that takes away from the tendency toward complexity is bad. So it boils down to this. doing the wrong things for the right reasons. So you can do something wrong for the right reason. An example, this isn't in the book, this is an example I'm just going to make up. So, let's say you're in Nazi Germany and some SS troopers come and they're like, hey, we want that little Jew boy. And you're like, he's not here. You lie. You do the right thing. You do the wrong thing for the right reason. You save the kid's life. So, this gets kind of deep, but it's really not that deep. It's a pretty simple philosophy, but that's worth reading this book alone, just to get into that. And in the end, I will say this, that, Carla and him, they don't make it, but they have a nice partying, they part. And I heard that, I did some research on Gregory David Roberts, and I guess he's underground now and not talking to anyone or doing anything, but this is a decent book. If you want to read it, it took me a while because I can't, get through books, but if you're you can read 50 pages a day and it's entertaining. You want to turn the page. You want to find out what's going on. So, I highly recommend Shantaram. Next, I'm going to review Gravity's Rainbow, which is freaking, I don't know what to say about that, but anyway, I hope you like this review. Buy the book, it's worth it. And if you can, get this one with this cover, with this, because there's several different covers.